What is up, Broncos country? It's your boy Denver Trav, back with another video today. We're going to be talking about the Broncos bringing in UFL standout wide receiver Hakeem Butler, the 6'5" freak athlete that moves like a small guy and just seems like somebody that Sean Payton would love to develop and have on his roster. However, I think the idea of making him a wide receiver isn't really that great of an idea, considering that the Broncos have five guys at wide receiver that are guaranteed to make this roster. And you got to think Hakeem Butler is going to be battling against guys like LaJordan Humphrey to even make the practice squad at the wide receiver position. So personally, I think Sean Payton has a really good track record of transforming wide receivers into tight ends. We've seen it with the guy that played for the New Orleans Saints. But before we get into that, we're going to look at Hakeem Butler's accomplishments in the UFL, and we're going to talk a little bit about why I think he could be a good fit for this Denver Broncos team. So Hakeem Butler, 6'5", 242 pounds, played at Iowa State, and he was a prospect that many teams in the NFL absolutely loved. He was named UFL Offensive Player of the Year and All UFL Offense of 2024. So he's a guy, reliable hands. He led all UFL receivers with 652 yards to set the franchise single season record and led the team with 5 total touchdown catches, which was tied second in the UFL. He surpassed his franchise single season record of 599 receiving yards in 2023 with 39 yards on 3 catches in week 8 versus DC to set a new mark of 606 receiving yards. He did sign with the Cincinnati Bengals following that in a UFL season. Prior to the Battlehawks, he signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2023. He had an XFL season with St. Louis as well. He was originally selected by the Arizona Cardinals in the 4th round of the 2019 NFL Draft, missed his rookie season due to a broken hand, signed to the Carolina Panthers practice squad in September of 2020, and then he was signed by the Philadelphia Eagles to their active roster as a tight end, waived and re-signed to the Eagles practice squad. He spent time in 2022 with the BC Lions in Edmonton in the CFL. So this is a guy that's already played at the tight end position as well. And you can just kind of look at his stats here. You know, with the Battlehawks, his best years, were 2024, 652 yards, 5 touchdowns. And he had a really good 2026 season. He had 641 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he is just a guy, in my opinion, to be as big as he is, 6'5", 242 pounds. He moves like a savvy small receiver. He has really fast feet, really reliable hands, and he just makes plays. Over the top, jump balls, contested catches. He can beat you underneath. I mean, there's catches that we've seen in the UFL where he would take the ball for 50 to 75 yards to the house on a slant or on a screen. He is a guy that I can just see Sean Payton and Davis Webb being in love with. The only problem that I see with Hakeem Butler making this roster is the wide receiver room is already way too crowded. Like I said before, you have Cortland Sutton. He's the alpha. He's the guy, the contested catch guy. He is the guy that is the veteran here. You have Jalen Waddle. He's the difference maker that Denver brought in to make this offense flow perfectly, which is something that everybody should be looking at because Jalen Waddle opens the offense up for everybody else. Then at wide receiver 3, there's a big question mark. You have Troy Franklin, a guy that broke out in year 2 and was really, really good. However, you still have Pat Bryant, which everybody's saying in camp, mini camp, OTAs, that he looks really good and he looks like he's going to take over the wide receiver 3 spot. And then you have Marvin Mims Jr. coming up on the contract year. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. And then behind, Marvin Mims, you have LaJordan Humphrey, Michael Bandy, guys that are going to be on the practice squad. Michael Bandy may not even make this roster, considering that the Broncos did go out and get guys like Sean Fresh. They went out and got Colby Katzis, Cam Ross. They have replacements there for the return man and depth at the wide receiver position. So it'll be interesting to see, does Denver roll out there with the 5 wide receivers? I think they do, unless possibly a trade happens and Marvin Mims gets dealt prior to the season starting, which would absolutely shock me. But you never know. In training camp, if one of these young guys stand out, there could be a world where we no longer see Marvin Mims Jr. on this Broncos roster, which would be insane to me. However, Hakeem Butler, let's get back to Hakeem Butler. He's a guy that just kind of reminds me of somebody that Sean Payton got the best of in his career and moved him to tight end from wide receiver out of Oregon. And we're talking about none other than Jawan Johnson. And you might be saying, Trav, come on, man. You're saying Hakeem Butler is going to be Jawan Johnson. I think Sean Payton, when it comes offensively, he can move a guy from wide receiver to tight end, and it would possibly work. However, I've seen people in my comments saying, oh, another position change. This didn't work with Drew Sanders. This didn't work with Baron Browning. Like, at the end of the day, really the true point there is we're talking about guys that didn't work out to begin with. And that's going to sound insane. I'm not disrespecting anybody. I think everybody should have a fair shot to compete in the NFL. But when we talk about guys like Baron Browning, it just wasn't working out. Drew Sanders hasn't worked out this far. Hopefully, them putting him back at outside linebacker, it does work out. But with Hakeem Butler, I think he is a guy that could definitely make this team, but I don't think he's going to make it as a receiver. And I think everybody would agree on that because we're talking about a receiving room that's absolutely loaded and may be one of the best wide receiving rooms from the top to bottom in the NFL. And I wouldn't be surprised, if something happens there and Denver decides to move Hakeem Butler to tight end to try to get the production that they got out of Jawan Johnson in when he was with the Saints with Sean Payton. And you've seen this past year, Jawan Johnson is a very reliable player. He had 889 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. He's a 6'4", 231-pound tight end, very similar to a guy like Hakeem Butler. And he had a really good grade, a 66.5 overall grade, a 69.1 receiving grade, 100 targets on 77 receptions on 100 targets, 889 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. I'm taking Hakeem Butler at tight end in the Sean Payton-led offense if you can get the production that you're getting out of 29-year-old Jawan Johnson. And I know people might say, hey, Trav, these are two different guys. One guy's in the UFL, one guy's in the NFL. That's fair. But when we talk about Jawan Johnson and the football teams that he played on as wide receiver, and then we look at a guy like Hakeem Butler that's not really had an opportunity in the league with a good offensive mind. He played at Philly, he played at Arizona, and he played with the Pittsburgh Steelers during offseason. The only true chance that Hakeem Butler has had to make it in the NFL as a playmaker would be with a guy like Sean Payton. Sean Payton is what made Jawan Johnson what he is. Jawan Johnson as a receiver in this league wouldn't have been the Jawan Johnson that we see today with the New Orleans Saints. That's a very reliable tight end. And I think people are going to really start to understand when Hakeem Butler gets to go and gets the fair shake from Sean Payton. Hopefully it works out. And you can say, Trav, the tight end room is loaded too. Denver has a good tight end room. You have guys like Evan Ingram. You have Justin Jolie. You have Dallin Bentley, Adam Troutman. But if Denver carries 5 tight ends, I would much rather put Hakeem Butler at tight end and let Nate Atkins go. There's just so many options here. Lucas Kroll. I think Denver should at least try it. Try to put Hakeem Butler at tight end and see what happens. I'm interested in it because Sean Payton has done it before, and he has a pretty positive track record from taking wide receivers, converting them to tight end, and being a very, very successful move. Like we've seen it in the past. So you guys tell me in the comments below, what do you think? Should Denver bring in Hakeem Butler, move him to tight end, kind of like Philly tried? It didn't work out for Philly. Let's see if it works out in Denver. Is this something that you guys would be interested in? If you would, make sure to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and remember, hit that hype button, turn on notifications. It helps recommend me to more Bronco fans like yourself. I'm going to start posting more long-form content talking about the Broncos every single day. So you guys supporting me truly means the world to me. And remember, before we get out of here, go Broncos.